we'll admit people as that's all setting up. And Richard, have you got any news? Anything you particularly want to talk about before we start?
What was there? This event that you and I are attending this weekend. I don't know who in the group, whether it's Adam or Kerry. Someone has asked if we know anyone who wants a ticket for free, if they'd be willing to man the door and scan QR codes as they come in. So I said that I would ask in the group. So if any of you are interested in a free ticket, let us know and we will put it forward to Adam and Kerry.
Excellent. And it's in Raynaud in Essex. Okay? I just think I need to tell everybody that.
Not the other one.
Not the Raynaud in Kent, because I noticed somebody online did the same thing I did. I booked a train to Kent, Raynham, because I just thought, well, I know Raynham. I was born in Kent. I know it. And there you go. Idiot I was. Not checking it. Right. Here we go. NE Online. It's a very long question. Hi, question at the end. This is a long background info. Well, we'll give the background info out because when on the playback, people won't see the chat. So we'll do that. Son is in hospital since early hours of Friday. Sorry to hear that. Unable to keep food or water down. And this continues to the present moment. He is on intravenous symptom management meds, including anti-sickness, pain, and electrolytes. His ketones reached 2.2 and glucose 4.7. Their reaction was to add 5% glucose drip. Ben swooped on today. Just bear with me while I admit people in. Sorry, people being late there. Takes me out my flow. Let's get them in. Right. He been swooped on today by the consultant. Oh, yes, I get what you mean. Sorry. Who prescribed the same drugs he is on and said, try eating ice cream. When all indications suggest, and then the question disappeared. May have to catch the replay as in the hospital. We need to go very shortly. Thanks. If you do read my question, I actually can't see the question.
Yeah, I can't either. It's been cut off after halfway through Sudge.
Yes. Oh, it sounds awful. We'll get to Michelle's question. Hi, Stephen. I was going to book an online consultation with you soon. I was going to get bloods and keep a food diary the week before. Should I just email you to find what bloods will be helpful? Yes. And a lot of it, Michelle, will be led by budget and symptoms. So I can tell you now, if you are prepared to spend about £150 to maybe about 170, you'll get 151 biomarkers, and that will cover virtually everything, plus someone taking blood from your arm. Because if you're doing extensive blood markers, you need to have a venous draw. If it's too much money, I can see you on the screen. Does that sound about too much money or about right? That's not right. Okay. So yes, and you can do a well woman check. Medichecks is very good. But if there's particular things you want, then just email me and say, these are the things I've heard that I definitely want. And we'll make sure that that is included in the test. If it isn't, then there's other people. But most people do well with the well woman, well man test. That's great. And, I'm going to plug the book now. Yes, I've got the book here. I now got a version. Yes.
Don't forget to bring mine.
Yeah, I was going to bring it on Saturday.
Which I will pay you for, by the way. I don't expect it for free.
Oh, okay. That's very kind of you. Right. There are no questions in the chat, and that's why I asked if you wanted to say anything in particular, Richard.
You usually can't shut me up, can you? But well, speaking of blood tests, I've done finger prick test today for testosterone. So yeah, we'll see what that comes back as. It's I'm not suffering with any symptoms or problems, but I do like to check because I love data. So yeah, it'd be interesting because one of the big things to do with Saladino's reason for coming away, and many other people within the community, is low testosterone. So it'd be interesting to see. So I'll keep you guys updated. I think Matthew's just popped a question in.
Yeah, Matthew has said, I emailed Kerry on Saturday about winning a ticket. I saw that, Matthew. That was great. You won a ticket to the Carnivore event. I haven't had any response from him yet. Do you have any details about the event? Is lunch included or do we bring our own lunch? Do you know anything about it?
I do not. It's I don't. We're all following me. You and I, Steve, we weren't on the bill originally, were we? But
No.
I think they've reached out to us since. So this is all incredibly short notice for Steve and I. Steve and I are not being paid to go to this event either. Usually when we do talks, it's we're paid a small fee. Not a great deal, but it just covers our travel expenses. But this is coming at a cost for us, isn't it? But
Yeah.
which is fine. So we're doing it out of our duty, I guess, to support the cause. But yeah, it's a question that we can ask. Which in fact, I'll do that. I'll message the guys now while we're on the call, and hopefully we'll have an answer.
I will read from the website what it says, by the way.
There we are. Working as well.
Yeah. So let's do that, because we haven't got any questions. We have got questions. The problem with being a moderator, you guys, you wait for me to say something and then you put a question in. Right, okay. Are you ready to be part of something transformative? Join the Healing Humanity team, Kerry Mann and Adam Lacey, as well as others, including Dr. Robert Kiltz, Lee Copus, the Kent Carnivore, Alex Cannon, Lauren Tucker, Coach Stephen Thomas, spelt wrong, and Richard Smith, as we share the powerful stories of healing through the proper human diet. Together, we're building a community, blah, 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 all that stuff. Right, so that's who's doing it. What to expect? It starts from 1 p.m, so you were right, actually. It goes till 4 p.m. It's on Saturday, the 14th of December. And what to expect? The latest updates on the Healing Humanity documentary from the director, Kerry Mann, and assistant director, Adam Lacey. Inspiring, transformative testimonies of Kerry, Adam, Robert Kiltz, Lee Copus, Alex, and Lauren Tucker, which will also have myself and Richard. Question and answer time with the carnivore experts, again with Kiltz leading the way. Merchandise, giveaways, and sales. Dedicated time to meet and mingle with other like-minded individuals. Parking is included. However, you may be asked to register your vehicle with security when you arrive. So I don't think there is any food, because it's only a 3-hour thing, actually. The 1 till 4 o'clock. And it is in the United Kingdom at CEME Business Campus, the Auditorium, Marshway, Raynham, London, RM13 8EU. It's not London. That RM is more Romford, actually, which is Essex. And that's it. That's what I know. I think that's covered it. So we've got questions now, by the way. So Matthew, going back to your ticket, Richard and myself will be there. There's no way you won't get in, by the way, so don't worry about that. I can absolutely categorically remember that you won from the draw. They're very organised in that way. I don't think lunch is included. I think there might be some casual thing happening beforehand or maybe afterwards, which isn't included in the price. Any more, Richard, or have I covered it?
I think you've covered it. I think a link in the comments might help for guys to go and look at the information themselves. If you've got it there, you can just paste, Steve.
Sorry, say that again.
A link to the website. It might be worth popping that into the comments.
Oh, yes, let's do that.
I know you've just read it all, but it's just so the guys can go back and...
Yeah, I was going to screen share and I thought,
take a look.
It'd be a bit dull for everybody. I'm getting loads of people coming in, so many people late. It's incredible. Yeah, so should we go to the questions then?
Yeah, I think Josh is next.
Oh, yes. Worried about low. All right. Lucy wants to know if she should be worried with a low TSH in red and very high TS4 in T. Ignore the last message. I don't know what that means.
So you could go on to the next one. So Lucy wants to know if she should be worried low thyroid stimulating hormone and very high FT4 and FT3 with normal.
Right. Okay, right. Now then, let's have a look at this. Low TSH. What a thyroid stimulating hormone is part of actually, pituitary gland sends a signal. It gets a signal actually from the hypothalamus. So TSH is coming from the pituitary gland to the thyroid and telling it to do its business based on feedback. Now, why is the TSH low? Because the T3 is normal. All right, so that's the active form of thyroid hormone. So the TSH is low because the feedback is saying exactly what you said in your question, Josh. And if I sound patronising, I'm not meant to be actually. Yeah. So it's not a worry. That's the point, because the TSH is low and T3 is normal. Right, now, high T4, what's high mean? What does that mean? What does it actually mean? We've got to look at this, because that's an arbitrary semantic expression of where it is. The storage form of T4 is not being converted to T3 because you have enough T3, right? So the body is a remarkable mechanical device in one respect, or a piece of engineering, a biochemical device. It works out what it needs, but it also is pretty smart at storing stuff. Now, if you have been low fat or Lucy has for a long period of time, it's supposed to have 50 days worth of hormone stored. Well, if you're low calorie, low fat, it won't have ever done that. So now, if there's an abundance of material, it will store it, because it's storing it for a later day. It's exactly sort of analogous to body fat. We store fat for usage when there's no food around, or T4 will be stored for usage when there's no incoming fats and stuff. It will normalize. But I would say, what are the symptoms? Are there any symptoms? Is there anything that you're worrying about? Hot flushes, fatigue, burning too much body fat, constipation. There's loads of things. So that would be interesting. But from those numbers, that won't bother me at all. I saw a similar thing today, actually. A little bit upset I was, because someone had been sort of diagnosed with a thyroid problem. And Richard, you will find this will make you roll your eyes. The 2 supplements they were given, they were told they were sort of hypothyroid, had no symptoms of hypothyroid, had perfectly good antibodies, TPO and TG, perfectly good cortisol on waking. Midday was slightly into the red, and the rest of the cortisol was normal. And they're not diabetic, and they were given a supplement to reduce blood glucose and a supplement to reduce that cortisol. And I said, the cortisol's high in midday because you take a thing in the morning to bring your blood glucose down, and your body doesn't like it. So it's increasing the cortisol to bring your blood glucose up. It's completely explainable. Hold
on.
I'm really cross even now. And that was recommended by someone that everyone would know the name of. And it was just unbelievable. It was just not joined up thinking at all. There was no proof of anything. Anyway, right. So I just wanted to hear that. Right. Did you want to add anything to those thyroid numbers, or did you?
No, spot on. I think they all are perfect to me. I'd be concerned if thyroid stimulating hormone was elevated. This is the perfect diet for thyroid function in regards to the fat, in regards to iron, which is essential of the conversion of iodide into iodine. And then we get plenty of selenium, which is essential for the conversion of T4 into T3. And again, it's low T3 is common on a ketogenic or carnivore lifestyle, because our requirement for it becomes lower, because it doesn't need to be transported through the pyruvate, mitochondrial pyruvate complex. So bar those things, it's perfectly normal, isn't it? In fact, I would expect T3 to start to become lower as you gravitate, or as Lucy gravitates deeper into the journey, Josh. And again, that's nothing to be concerned of, as long as there are no symptoms. Everything should be driven by symptom. If everything is hunky-dory, the worst thing about these tests is you get a test and you find that you are deficient, and I use the air quotes with that, on something, and then you panic, and then you start supplementing with something, and then this throws everything else out of whack. And you start doing things that you shouldn't be doing to rectify something that wasn't a problem in the first place. And it's this is the danger of blood tests. If you're feeling perfectly healthy, it always needs to come back to how you feel. As I said earlier, I've just tested for my testosterone. And And I've done that for no other reason other than the fact that I do it every year. I test various things every year purely for science purposes. I like data. I feel perfectly fine. And whatever the results are the results. There's nothing wrong because I'm perfectly healthy. I'm achieving all the things that I want to achieve. And it's purely for, educational purposes. But that is the danger, isn't it, of these blood tests, that we become wedded to these ranges which we shouldn't be part of. We're not normal. We are the abnormal. It's to be normal is to be unhealthy, per se. So that's the danger. That's my gripe in regards to blood tests. Again, bounce it back to Josh. Is Lucy suffering with any problems? Is that the reason that she was tested? No.
He's actually put that in there, no symptoms.
Perfect.
And he's apologising for his fat fingers as well.
That's my excuse.
No, apart from Meniere's, but that's improved since Carnivore, as in no symptoms. Right. Cool. Right. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Good evening, guys. A friend has Raynaud and has cold hands and feet. No known health issues. Any ideas what would be causing this? And any suggestions? Well, I mean, that condition is vasospasms, as they say, or restriction in the extremities, which is going to lead to reduced blood flow. And so you get reduced blood flow. So your fingers might go white, or one finger might go white. And obviously, when you got reduced blood flow, you get colder feelings in your hands and feet, because obviously blood, one of the things it does is it keeps you it keeps your temperature modulated. So you feel a little bit cold. I mean, what is good about this is sometimes it can be impingement. So C3, C4, C5 keeps you alive, as they say, in osteopathic circles and chiropractic circles. And I had some osteopathic spinal manipulation specialism when I did the lower back. And you can fix Raynaud's in about 70% of cases there and then on the massage table, where you put some pressure on C3, C4, and C5, push that forward and push the forehead back, and get the person to put their hands like this, and they feel their hands warming up. Within about 20 minutes, you can feel that, and it can actually fix that condition permanently if it is impingement. If it isn't, then this way of eating is the best thing you can do, because what you're doing is you're minimizing the effects. If you have restriction or inflammation of the arteries and the blood vessels, then any sort of trigger, any sort of spasm or temporary constriction is going to make that worse. So let's say your artery is like this, a big, I'm doing an exaggeration, obviously, but, under a microscope, it's quite big like this, and you get inflammation. Well, many people think, well, just the outside inflamed. No, the whole wall inflames, so the interior shrinks as well, because the thickness of the wall increases. So that makes that space even smaller. Well, if you get rid of the inflammation and you get this spasm, this constriction, it's not going to be as bad, so the symptoms get less. But I think over time, actually, with this way of eating, it does tend to go. I've got some success stories where that has gone completely and utterly, or, well, I can't say that. It's gone over the period of time, like maybe 4 or 5 years. So you would tend to think once it's not come back after 4 to 5 years, it's never going to come back. But I'm sure Richard has something to add to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've worked with a number of clients who have suffered with Raynaud's, and they didn't come to me for this. They came to me with various other health issues. One of which was the sister of Sarah Davis, who you and I both know. Mm-hmm. Sarah is one of the UK's leading neurophysiologists. At the time, I was working with Sarah, an incredibly intelligent person. At the time, she was clinically obese, type 2 diabetic, and suffered with a whole host of problems. Within 11 months, she'd lost 6.5 stone and reversed her diabetes, and that was the start of her life moving forward. She now went on to become an age group qualifier in Ironman. So she could barely walk a mile, and now she competes in triathlon and Hyrox and so on and so forth. But at the time, I was running Healthy Living Club, or what I called Fat Club at the time. And it wasn't called Fat Club because we were all fat. It's because fat is our friend, and we want to try to bring down this common misconception. We need to learn to love fat. So I was running Fat Club, and she came as an attendee. You know, she's medically qualified. Her sister is incredibly medically qualified. She came with severe kidney problems, liver problems, and she was on biologics for both of these things. I won't get into all the details, but she also suffered with Raynaud's, and I think Sarah did also as well. Anyway, she came to Fat Club in order to give me a row, because I was telling her sister to eat incredibly high fat and animal proteins and low carb. And being medically qualified, this was against everything that she was taught. And lo and behold, she came to the lessons. She listened to what I had to say. She asked her questions. I answered the questions. She always had more questions, to which I always had answers for. She went away, researched them, and she was always really pleasant, but it's super inquisitive. Anyway, 8 weeks later, course had finished, and she came to see me and said that she's now off her biologics. Her kidney function had improved, liver function had improved, and her Raynaud's had almost disappeared. And this was through removing highly inflammatory seed oils and grains. We hadn't even gravitated deeply into being ketogenic. Raynaud's isn't autoimmune, but if you are autoimmune, it can be massively exacerbated. So, was that a horse then? I was on Michelle's. I'm sure a horse just came over the camera. Brilliant. Yeah. Easily distracted. So living this lifestyle is that it is again. So it helps block inflammation, and it helps, as you say, with blood flow. It increases mechanical efficiency of the heart by as much as 35%, blood flow by as much as 70%. So all of these things can confer huge benefits to all sorts of problems. Now, so her Raynaud's was almost completely disappeared. So that's one case. Sarah was another. And now I'm going to name drop with Ben Azadi, who's a friend of Stephen and I. Ben has a podcast in Miami called
Keto Camp.
Keto Camp. I always have to ask you that, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
I do. All of these big words, and I can't remember Keto Camp. Spelt with a K, by the way.
Yes.
The camp part. Anyway, so
and keto.
And the keto is also spelled with a K. Well done. So during my last chat with Ben, we were talking about alpha diversity in the gut, because he did a 90-day carnivore challenge. I won't get too much into this, but the alpha diversity increased when he went carnivore anyway. But part of the conversation was that he suffers with Raynaud's. And I think we may have had this off air. I can't really remember. But he'd started cold water dipping, and which you'd think is the opposite of what we should be doing with Raynaud's. But he started cold water dipping at a quite a high temperature, because he was incredibly sensitive to the cold. He jumped in. He couldn't last more than a couple of minutes, and he had to come out. He was in severe pain. Excuse me. And he thought that was it. But he tried the next day, and he managed to stay in for 3 times longer. I think it was 3 times. It was exponentially longer. And then the next day, he jumped back in on that temperature, and he managed to stay in a lot longer, and he was way more comfortable. So then he dropped the temperature the next day. Same thing happened again. Couple of minutes, and he had to come out because he was in severe pain. Next day, that temperature seemed okay, and he managed to stay in longer. Super long story short, he incremented these changes and dropped the temperature over time, and his Raynaud's have all but disappeared. He says, last time I spoke to him, that he feels that it's no longer there. But in conjunction with living the lifestyle, the cold water dipping has been a huge game changer. And this makes perfect sense from a hormetic standpoint. Hormesis, as you guys have been mentioned many times, there's 2 types of hormesis: molecular hormesis and environmental hormesis. Molecular hormesis, in my opinion, is a fallacy, because this is what we would expect to see from Stephen's taking a step back. I won't be too much longer, I promise. We've got time. There's no questions. Anyway,
There is
Oh,
questions.
there is. Sorry, okay. I'll wrap this. I'll wrap this up really quickly.
Richard, I'm enjoying it.
We should launch a comedy sketch. Anyway, molecular hormesis, which is elicited via plant compounds, isn't a true hormetic response. I won't bore you with the details, but the long and the short is the response is short-lived and it isn't a true hormetic response. Whereas environmental hormesis, i.e. cold water dipping, red light therapy, a ketogenic lifestyle, which is environmental, by the way, where you would argue that it's molecular because it is to do with putting things in our mouth, except it isn't. Think of what produces ketones. It's an environment in which we have no food. We become ketogenic. So it's environmental. It's not to do with what we're eating. In fact, it's the opposite. It's environmental because it's to do with what we're not eating. And this is why ketosis and carnivore are, in fact, environmental hormesis, in the same way the cold water dipping is. So environmental hormetics is incredibly beneficial, and super beneficial is cold water dipping for conditions such as Raynaud. So my advice would be to consume a low carbohydrate diet, low inflammatory diet, avoid of grains and seed oils, predominated with animal fats and animal proteins. You can call that what you want. You can call it low carb, you can call it keto, you can call it carnivore. I don't care. As long as you follow those rules, it's an ancestral appropriate lifestyle. And if you implement cold water dipping periodically with a planned approach, incremental approach, not step change, incremental approach, private joke between Steve and I, then I think those combined will be highly beneficial in combating Raynaud's. There we are.
That's brilliant. Yeah, you've got to stop doing that. I was just enjoying listening.
You look so peed off. You sat back and he was like, here you go.
No, listening. No, I was actually saying to Jane that it's hard when I'm moderating and answering questions and stuff to listen to all your answers. And I was just trying to make sure I did.
I do this to give you time so you can read the question.
Yeah, I know that. But it's, I like to hear your answers. Right, let's do this. So, where were we? So many doctors diagnose diseases based on test values without consideration of associated symptoms. That's from Michael. Absolutely, definitely. That's the problem at the moment. They are looking at numbers rather than symptoms. That's the big problem in this diet, says Michael. We become thyroid sensitive, so we need less T3. There are other reasons for needing less T3. Because we're eating less glucose, therefore we don't need pyruvate dehydrogenase to have T3 to get the glucose metabolism or pyruvate across the mitochondrial membrane. So we need less T3, which is where everyone goes wrong when they're reading the values when it comes to carnivore and keto. And we have a higher sensitivity to vitamin C intake because there's no competition against the sugar in the GLUT4 transporter. So we need less. Yeah, that's right. We need less vitamin C. We need less T3. There's a poem in there somewhere. Josh is saying his testosterone has doubled and free testosterone tripled since going carnivore. It's gone from being below average to above average. I can now tell you that when I went carnivore at age 55, nearly 6 years ago, mine went up by 51% in 3 months. 51%.
What I would add to that is this seems to be really common, is a massive increase in testosterone in the early stages, maybe 1 year, 2 and 3. But when I get my results back, which I will update you with, I'm expecting to see it towards the lower end because it almost seems to go full circle. So don't be surprised if you see that happen. Again, I believe it's for the same reason. Insulin is more sensitive. T3 is more sensitive. Vitamin C and glucose, all of these things become more sensitive. So I'm expecting my testosterone to be on the lower end. But let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also ties in with the fact that, the thyroid hormones are sort of regulating production of other hormones. When that settles down, it also settles down the overproduction of testosterone. I actually don't think it's a big issue if your testosterone goes lower, because if you look at Sean Baker, I think he's doing all right on quite low testosterone.
I think he's gained some muscle, Steve.
Yeah, you can tell him that when you meet him face to face. Right, Jeanette is saying she's on carbimazole. I always struggle with that for Graves' disease, but that's in remission, so I'm happy. That's very good. It inhibits the production of T4 and T3, by the way. That's how that works. Well, it gets involved in that, and I think it's iodine and tyrosine. It's sort of involved in blocking that. But anyway, that's good. And Jeanette also asked, can I ask you, is dairy carnivore carbs? Is dairy carnivore carbs? Thinking about that in that way makes it easier for me to stop having them. Well, yes, it's lactose, basically. Any dairy that has carbs, it's the lactose in the dairy that is being counted as a carbohydrate. If you're talking about dairy such as like fruit yogurts and things, you have to be careful what's added, as I found and showed in my experiment with my continual glucose monitor, that when I had Greek proper full fat Greek yogurt and some berries, blueberries, that was okay. But when I had a shop bought, and then from a farm shop and a very sort of posh yogurt that had fruit added, that still spiked my blood glucose, and therefore it would have obviously spiked my insulin. So yeah, if you want to not have carbs and that makes you feel better, or it's easier to not have dairy because it's got carbs in it, well, that's what you need to know. But some people do really well with the dairy. So I think it's just down to how you're reacting, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are lots of carnivores within our community who consume A2 dairy, and they do incredibly well. What I would add is that it is the one thing in nature that comes with all macronutrients, which we're not really designed to consume in abundance. We're not designed, in my opinion, to consume milk past the age of infancy, and not from another animal, ideally. I don't believe that we would have done it during our evolutionary period. Casein can still be problematic. That can still cause intestinal permeability, and it's highly addictive. Casomorphine is highly addictive. I do believe cheese is more beneficial. At least it's less damaging. The lactose is lower. I believe that even though it's highly addictive, it's incredibly high in protein and fat, but it's almost next to zero in carb. Cheese, I love raw dairy. I think it's absolutely incredible. But again, I find it highly addictive. And if I have some, then I drink a lot. We had our good friend Podrick on, didn't we, before, in regards to, I can't remember why we had him on, but one of the things we were talking about was his consumption of raw dairy, and he was happy to drink like a pint every day. And he was perfectly fine, and he was happy to do that because he wasn't struggling and having any issues. A number of weeks later, he'd stopped the raw dairy at least every day. So now he consumes it once every couple of weeks as a treat, because he found that it did start causing problems. It started causing gastro distress, weight gain. It's highly addictive. He was getting gastro pains. And so when it comes to A2 dairy, I think it's okay on carnivore if you tolerate it, but I do think it's one that we shouldn't overconsume. And in there lies the problem, because it is highly addictive. It's so nice that it is so easy to consume every day, isn't it? I think I personally would rather consume double cream. So in my days of drinking coffee, which I no longer do, over A2 dairy, I would put double cream in because it's less addictive. But cheese, I don't even look at cheese as being dairy. I know that sounds incredibly silly, but it lacks the compounds which cause most of the damage. It's not as addictive. It is still addictive, but I do believe it's not as damaging as some of the other compounds. And I think cheese has its place if you can tolerate it. But milk is one of those, it's a grey area, isn't it? I think it's something that we shouldn't overconsume, but does fall into the carnivore remit.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to jump ahead. Right. Because there's a couple of comments later on. People want some clarification. So Sally Ann is saying, what is raw dairy in the UK? Is that an American term? No, you can either have pasteurized, where it's heated, or you can have raw, where it isn't. And the story behind pasteurization will make your milk boil, because what used to happen when there was raw milk, it wasn't called raw milk, it was milk. There was no pasteurized process. there used to be people from like government agencies would go round and they would check each farm, for pathogens and problems and stuff like that. And that was quite expensive. So when pasteurization came in, which kills pretty much everything, it's 161 degrees Fahrenheit. It heats the milk to 161 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 seconds, or you can have 145 for about 30 minutes. It kills all the pathogens. And it was actually a cost-cutting exercise because I thought, well, that's great. We don't need to send all these people out to test the milk. We just have pasteurized. Of course, well, what does it kill? One of the things it kills is all the enzymes that are in the milk to make the milk easy for you to process. So raw, sorry?
Bifidobacteria.
Yes. So raw means it's not pasteurized. It means it's untreated. So that's the first thing. Sally Ann is also asking, and what does A2 mean? Well, there's two different types of protein, A1 and A2, and normally A2 is easier to digest. Do you want to carry on, Richard? Because I know you like talking about this.
Yeah, fantastic. It's difficult to find raw dairy. You can only buy it from the farm that produced it. It's actually illegal for a third party to sell raw dairy. This is why it's incredibly difficult to find, but it has to come direct from the farm that produces it. But they are out there. They are available. There's one fairly local to myself. I haven't been there because I try to avoid milk because it's incredibly addictive and it'll open up a can of worms for me because I'm a type of person that has an addictive personality. But yeah, it's not an American term. This is a British term. But you can source a dairy. There are companies who will ship it out all over the UK for you also.
Yeah, and Jeanette's saying she's scared to eat raw dairy. I've been told it can make you really sick. Hope that's another lie. I'd love to try it. Yeah, that is another lie. There's so many people online that have raw dairy. So many, it's unbelievable. And some people feel that it's very beneficial. I know that I actually feel less sick with raw dairy than pasteurized. I feel really quite queasy when I have any pasteurized dairy. So it's raw for me if you can get it. I also sorry.
No, I think we're done.
So what you can say?
I'll let you in on a little secret also. And this isn't a green card to go consuming this product, but if you were to consume raw dairy, then that contains the enzymes that will allow you to break down the nasties that are found within grains. So if you were to consume the raw dairy with grains, we would have far less problems. But we don't consume the raw dairy any longer.
Yeah.
So but that's not a green light to go consuming, but it is.
It's a good bit of information. And Sally Ann saying, I hate milk anyway. What are you asking for then? But anyway, no, for everybody else. And I think, I do better with A2. And when I get raw A2, it's just, out of this world. I know, Sally, and I was only teasing you that you did it just to understand. But yes, things like cheddar would be pasteurized, but you can get raw milk cheeses, and they are absolutely fabulous. Right, let's go back to the questions in order because I don't really like jumping ahead, but it seemed to really ignite everything. Where were we up to? Oh, that was a dairy question. Helen, relating to thyroid and in previously Monday lives, we finally had the private appointment at the thyroid clinic in Bristol for our daughter, age 14. She has Hashimoto's antibodies, even though our GP totally ignored her symptoms. I think we did talk about that, didn't we? She is now on levothyroxine and taking bioselenium and zinc and vitamin D and multivits. She is watching the amount of carbs, I think that's going to mean. She eats and loves butter. Hopefully some improvement very soon. Yeah, fingers crossed. I hope so. Then we've got Annie online is back. Hi, son in hospital since early hours of Friday, unable to keep water or food down. This continues to the present moment. He's on intravenous symptom management meds, including anti-sickness, pain and electrolytes. Consultant insisting on glucose-based products as best to try jelly, ice cream, apple juice and ginger biscuits. Son not yet able to try eating as unable to drink. But when he does, what do you suggest other than organic chicken and salt only stop?
Yeah, the stuff that I wouldn't recommend are the things that are high in glucose. It's the body needs fats and the body needs animal proteins, and we only need to look at our good friend Lee Corpus, who was recently in hospital and turned down the hospital food in lieu of his animal proteins and his soups and stocks, which were absolutely fantastic. To start with, the bone broth might be a good option. Available in lots of different flavors. There is a brand that I stock. It's not my brand. It's a third-party brand. They're incredibly good. You just add that to hot water, and it's incredibly nice. It's a nice, easy drink that's full of electrolytes, vitamins, and minerals. I sometimes use it as gravy. So if I want any flavor to my meal, if it's dry, then I'll add a little scoop of this to hot water. But it's a lot easier than soup, because soup can be quite thick. So it is incredibly watery. That's where I would start, I think, initially in regards to something to consume, because it's water-based and it should be incredibly easy to swallow and very nutrient-dense. It baffles me when doctors insist on putting sugar in. I mean, coming back to the readings earlier, 2.2 millimoles on the ketones, which isn't high. I mean, that's not excessive, and the blood glucose wasn't excessively high. So
4.7, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, that's not ketoacidosis. No. So the theory would be there that putting the glucose in is going to stop ketone production, which it does, because as soon as we elicit an insulin response, ketones are no longer produced. But ketoacidosis is only going to be a problem when both numbers continue to elevate. But they weren't. Neither were very high. I mean, I've seen ketones in double figures and blood glucose in almost double figures, and still not at an acidotic state. That's what I would do personally. But look, Stephen and I can't give medical advice. So that's just my opinion. The bone broth is something that I would be giving to my little girl if I were in that situation. It's something that I would be looking to consume if it were me in that situation myself.
Yeah, there's loads of drinks. If you're looking for protein, obviously a protein shake mixed with water or milk, as we spoke about earlier. Kefir, you could look at that if you're interested in fermented foods. Many people think that's probiotic. So, you could get a full fat fermented dairy drink, which is kefir. Full fat yogurt might work as well. If we're looking for liquid sustenance, and just simple whole milk. I mean, there is many things, but bone broth is
bone broth. MCT.
Yeah. But there you go. Right. Sorry to hear that. I mean, that's horrendous, isn't it? And of course, we have good old fashioned chicken soup. A good thing. Right. So, Cameron, Jeanette, it is animal carbs. We got my son off ADHD medicine. He drinks raw goat milk. He was affected only by plant-based carbs. Wonder what's in the plants. It will cause weight stalls and weight gain. Guys like Mike would be less affected because he's so active. If I drink raw milk on the weekends, I weigh 10 to 15 pounds more. Every day I would weigh, and if you drink it every day, I'd weigh about 25 to 30 pounds more. I've tested. Still feel great with extra cushioning. This happens because of the science, blah, blah. Rich, you can go into it. Yeah. Well, we just did.
Yeah.
Sally Ann's questions we've just covered. Richard, and this is from Helen. Richard, is it okay to add goat milk to your MCT chocolate powder, as my children like a milky hot chocolate?
Yeah, for sure. So again, goat is A2, so that's going to be the better. Or again, you could just add A2 cow's milk if you wanted to. Are they enjoying the MCT chocolate? Yeah. No, okay.
Well, it's a wobbly hands like that. Yeah.
It's a difficult one because it's not overly sweet as you would expect from like a Cadbury's chocolate, but I think it's just right. But it's keep pushing forward. I think persevere and they'll get used to it. This is one that I designed for my little girl. I think I drink it more than she does. It's especially in the cold nights, and I'm carnivore, so it's like things like chocolate and things I try to avoid generally, but it is quality MCT. The amount of cocoa in there, Stephen and I went into the amount of oxalate that will be present, and it's negligible. I think almost zero, wasn't it, when we looked at the amount that's going to cause damage versus what the body can deal with. The stevia in there is minimal, but I find it brilliant for the cold nights to have something warm to drink. But nothing wrong with adding some goat milk if you want to do that. Even double cream if you wanted to add that in potentially. But yeah, it's perfectly fine. I'm just trying to think of other ways that I do it. I tend to add 2 scoops to make it a little bit thicker. Sometimes I'll add the oil itself because I quite like the oily texture as well. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with adding some E2 goat's milk.
Brilliant answer. It's nice to have feedback instantly, isn't it? Which is good. And Helen, thank you for your continued support. It's nice to see you. Thank everybody. We know most of the faces and the names now, which is good. Jeanette is asking, I'm on an immune suppressant. So would raw, I think she means, so would raw still be okay? Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Right. Sally Ann asking, I love Sally Ann's line of questioning because just question and then says, doesn't bother me because I haven't got it. But anyway, this is great. So what is thyroiditis? I'll probably never know. In any case, it has gone now. Right. So anything with itis just means inflammation. So if you have, I can't think of another word right now with itis at the end, but there's loads. Tonsillitis. That's your tonsils are inflamed. Thyroiditis means your thyroid is inflamed. It's a pretty naff catch-all sort of expression. That's all it is. But if yours has gone, that's great. In fact, all the words that we know, when you break them down, actually, it's really interesting because it's just Latin or Greek. And then, if it's got emia on the end, so hypoglycemia, hypo means low, hyper means high. So hypoglycemia, glycemia is hypo, it's low glycemic in the blood, so low glucose in the blood. Emia. See? So we've got anemia, something to do with the blood. Right, anyway, right, here we go. Next thing. I'm enjoying it and replace my decaf coffee. That's remembered right, yes, that's good. I have the natural version of your MCT. I love it. It's my new milk substitute. Woo-hoo.
Fantastic.
That's great, isn't it? So we've come to the end of the questions.
Wait, read it. There is another one there. Jill has put a question about calcium.
Oh, yes. I saw that. And then it seemed to go. Oh, there it is. Right. Wanted to ask last week about calcium supplements. Been told to take it from the doctor due to bone density test. Suffer from arthritis. I'm not going to take the calcium as I am aware I can get it from my diet, which is really good. I just want to say, if you do get a calcium supplement from your doctor, it's invariably going to be what's called calcium carbonate, and that's the worst form of calcium you can be taken, but it's the cheapest. So you need to look at not only is it calcium, but what sort of calcium. But go on, Richard, I'll unleash you in that calcium.
Look, it's super simple. Look, calcium is essential. It's one of 6 elements that make up 99% of the human body. So we do need it. Calcium does build bone, but that's not the full story. Calcium can slow bone degradation, but it can't repair and rebuild without protein because bone is mineralized protein. So the dry weight of bone is 40% protein, which means that the single biggest contributor to bone is protein. Calcium can also not be sent to the bone unless we consume sodium. So calcium absorption to the bone is directly correlated with sodium consumption. So if we want to send that calcium to the bone, I know we know about vitamin K, but sodium is incredibly important. And we know this from research done on elderly people over the age of 65 who suffered with osteoporosis. And what they did is they put these groups of people into what they called a low protein group, a moderate protein, and a high protein. And even the high protein wasn't actually that high. I mean, within our community would still regard it as a low protein. But what they found was that the low protein group still continued to degrade despite calcium supplementation. All it did was slowed the degradation down. The medium protein group stopped the degradation. So they didn't further increase the rate of osteoporosis. And then the group that were consuming higher protein with the salt, or in fact, let's take that back, just consume the higher protein, they actually reversed their osteoporosis. So they increased the bone mineral density. So then what they did is they took these results and split it out into all of the things that they were consuming. And they found that in order to build bone, we need calcium, we need phosphate, we need protein, and we need sodium. So we can do without everything else within the diet, but we need those 4 things. Phosphate is found in everything. Calcium is found in everything. Calcium is found in everything that we eat. We don't need to supplement with it. So you can supplement with all the calcium you want. At best, all it's going to do is slow down the degradation, because the body takes calcium from the bone on a daily basis. So the body takes calcium and it's used in the body and it's replenished, and it's called calcium reabsorption. This is a process that happens in all of us constantly. So all we are doing when we're taking a calcium supplement is giving the body bioavailable calcium to use, so it takes less out of the bone. But this process still occurs. But in order to send calcium to the bone, we need protein and we need sodium. So i.e. a carnivore lifestyle. So we need to make sure that we're consuming higher amounts of animal proteins, salt or electrolytes, but you don't need any calcium supplementation. It's in my opinion, I'm not a fan of calcium supplementation, because studies suggest, especially in women, that excessive amounts, and by excessive, we're talking 500 milligrams of calcium supplementation each day, has been associated in 3 studies with increased risk of cardiovascular disease by 15%. Now, there is a caveat to this, because those studies are done on groups of people who are living a high-carb lifestyle. So we could argue that if we are living an animal-based lifestyle, that this calcification probably wouldn't occur. But the fact is, we don't need as much calcium as we're led to believe. And we know this if we look at the cell. If we look at each cell within the body, it predominates water. Beyond that is protein, and then it drops right down to lipid. Polysaccharide is 2%, and then it drops right down even less to the electrolytes and DNA and RNA and so on and so forth. These make up a very, very small portion. So calcium is essential, but if we are living, a carnivore-based lifestyle, we'll get plenty of calcium just from the meats we eat. If you are concerned, a couple of eggs or some cheese, I'd rather get the calcium from those, because they're going to be way more bioavailable. Jill, I can't give medical advice. I can't tell you to go against your doctor. All I can do is tell you what I've found in my experience with working with other clients and what I would do personally. There is a reason that I don't add calcium to my electrolytes, because I do believe excessive amounts are detrimental. I wouldn't be supplementing with calcium, but I would be eating calcium-rich foods and lots of proteins. And the beauty is that the calcium-rich foods in nature come with lots of protein. So we hit 2 birds with 1 stone. I always try to take things back to how we would have lived and thrived during our evolutionary period. But I know, how long, Jill, have you been ketogenic and carnivore? Because I think it's quite some months now. Is that right? You can type if you don't want to jump on.
She's put, thank you.
Awesome.
Nearly 2 years now.
Okay, 2 years on carnivore?
Yeah. Oh no, on carnivore, I'd say probably 6 months.
6 months. Jill, you and I spoke probably 6 months ago. Is that right? Did we?
If we talked a couple of months. Yeah.
Yes.
Months ago. Yeah.
Perfect. So when was this test done in regards to so the doctor told me
Bone density.
The bone density. Yeah. Probably was a couple of months ago. It just came through the results. Yeah. So it came through about a week ago.
Okay, but it was from a few months ago.
Yeah. But I had the test a couple of months ago. Yeah. So it came back a week ago, and then I got a phone call from the doctor saying they were going to give me the calcium and vitamin D, and I was like, no, I'm not taking that.
Vitamin D can work. We do.
Not D anyway. I already take D3 anyway.
And the K2.
Wasn't taking the calcium carbonate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would do, Jill, is make sure that you eat enough, because one of the negative sides of living this way is that we tend not to consume enough. Especially women. Women don't eat enough. You need to be eating for 2 to 3 meals a day. aim as a ballpark figure for around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Ballpark. If you get anywhere close to that, then you're going to be fine. And this can be split throughout the day. If you can tolerate eggs and cheese, keep those in. But I'd be inclined to try that before the next test over the next few months, and see where you go over putting the calcium carbonate in the short term. You can pay to do these tests privately also if you want to do it sooner.
Yeah, I think I might do that a bit later on, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
No problem. Nice to see you again.
Thanks.
It's excellent. Right. I think we're sort of pretty much near the end of the hour. I was told, says Sally Ann, I was told I had hyperthyroidism. Oh, we've done that one, I think. Let's go down. It's funny, my system goes back to older ones, right? So Sally Ann threw her calcium from the doctor away. I eat meat, electrolytes, and lift heavy. So that's good. Heavy-ish. Can we take a whole bone matrix supplement instead of calcium supplement? I've stopped my calcium supplement from my doctor and I'm taking D3 and K2. Well, all a bone matrix supplement is exactly what we were just talking about. It's normally calcium, vitamin D, hopefully vitamin D3, magnesium, phosphorus, collagen, and K2 and zinc. Well, we get that from the diet. So yes, you can take that, can't you? But I mean, do you need to? That's the question. And I think lifting heavy weights is a big plus because to get the bone to get, a physiological response to start making it more dense, you need to actually give some resistance, which is why, one of the things that doesn't respond when you've lost it is your jawbone. If you have like any sort of bone disease in your jaw and you see it in an X-ray, it goes away because there's no way of sort of giving it extra resistance. It's difficult to regrow. So anyway, right. Helen's asking, what do you think of ginger? Right, I'm going to do this in separate bits. Ginger. Oh, well, I think that's all right. What do you think of ginger? Ginger's good for stomach upsets, I think.
Look, we're opening the can of worms. All of these things are beneficial in a sick state.
Oh, well, let me give you the whole question. Then. I thought you might do a little quick answer, but no, I've got Richard, who you are. So let's do the whole question. Right, here we go. What do you think of ginger? I've just put my 2 pence in. I think ginger is okay for stomach upsets and short basis. Anyway, right. Chili shots with baobab superfruit on sale in Holland Barrett's for an immune and energy booster. Hubby has bought some to add to the protein drinks. Well, the protein drink's probably all right. But anyway, I think that's from a tree in Africa, isn't it? Australia.
Yeah. So I think if you are a sick person, then taking medicine can help in the short term. If you were not and you live in a ketogenic carnivore-based lifestyle, what happens if you put chili and ginger, in your eye, for example? It burns and it causes an inflammatory response. And this is what happens in your gut. It causes an inflammatory response. All of these things will activate that NRF2 pathway, which is an oxidative stress pathway, which is why we see benefit initially. But if we were to overconsume, so basically taking a little can help in the short term if you're sick. But if you consume long term, it's going to overexpress this pathway and activate another pathway called NFKB, nuclear factor kappa B, which will lead to more inflammation. So medicine can work in the short term, and this is what these things are. They work for medicinal purposes, but for optimal health, if you're not sick, then you don't need them. And without getting into too much detail, it's as simple as this. So, I mean, Helen, you wouldn't need them, for example. If your husband isn't carnivore and he's unwell, they may be beneficial. But the best thing to do is get him on carnivore. It's simple.
Yeah. Yes. So last question from Tina. What are your thoughts on recommended fat levels for peri, postmenopausal women for hormone regulation, energy levels, and fat loss? Dr. Bright recommends a very high fat to protein ratio. I think that's very individual. I think I wouldn't go very high fat. When I start, I would definitely look at 1-to-1 by weight, which ends up being about 66 to 33. So 66% fat to 33%. protein, roughly 1-to-1 by weight, and see how you go for about 90 days. And then in that 90 days, you will see what the results are, and you might find that your body composition really improves and your energy improves and everything else improves. I wouldn't go by numbers, by the way. I would definitely go by how you feel. I wouldn't look at bloods or anything like that. And then you make a decision, because there will be symptoms that can lead to more fat or more protein as a percentage or as a proportion, not necessarily going beyond what you've started from, but actually just changing the ratios. So let's say you were having problems with fat malabsorption, and you were seeing fat in your stools and stuff like that. Well, that would lend itself to having less fat. So these sort of broad brush approaches absolutely drive me crazy, because there isn't a one size fits all, and also your previous history makes a big difference. So I mentioned earlier, someone that's low fat, low calorie for many years, possibly they're going to really appreciate higher fat eventually, but not when it starts out. So I think it's very individual. And that's from Tina, but you know Tina quite well, don't you?
Yeah, know Tina very well. Yeah, so Tina is an incredible competitor in the world of bodybuilding. She won some fantastic competitions recently on very little prep also. I think it's very different for competitors too, Tina, because I think you damage your body. As you know, when you diet to this degree, it's detrimental to the body. So your requirement for fat may be higher than the average person. I do think women need slightly more fat in general, but I completely agree with Steve that it needs to start. And I agree, 1-to-1 by weight is the best ratio for most people as we build up the resistance to the fat, because our bile production and reabsorption isn't what it should be when we start living the lifestyle. But yours is already there. I don't know, and this is going to sound awful, I don't know who Dr. Bright is. I don't know who anyone is. I'm useless.
Elizabeth Bright.
Yeah,
Dr. Elizabeth Bright.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, look, I'm useless. I am a big fan of fat. Fat comes with animal proteins. I believe that the biggest case is for problems is lack of meals in general. So again, as you know, women tend to just eat one meal a day and fast for prolonged periods of time. So we do need 2 to 3 meals a day, especially if for women. Lots of women undereat. We've got you on a good, a solid diet now. I believe, and this will be interesting for us to catch up on the next call as to if there's a problem, or have you asked that for a specific reason. But I think you're on the right path. You've just come off the back of an intense prep. So your body is going to take time to adjust, and we're also about to start another prep. So it's
yes. So we're going to end that there because I just want to quickly say this would be a lovely gift if you wanted to get my Bloods book. You just hint to people. It's on Amazon, or you can get it from the Real Food Company. The hardback version you can get from Amazon. But anyway, that was great, Richard. That was really good. I hope Tina liked that answer. Thank you, everyone else who put questions in. And if you want to turn up on Saturday and scan the codes for a free ticket, that would be great. It's in Raynham in Essex, not Raynham in Kent. So great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. That went quick. Surprisingly quick.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was good. Enjoyed that.
Good. Good questions.
Some really good questions.
Yes. There's some good things added by people as well. So that was good. Let me just stop the recording. That's good. And stop